Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Good morning, Bellows Falls and Keene, and welcome to the feed with Mike and Marty. We're going to do another Sojourns highlight today. So we have Dr. Clif Steinberg with us, and we have Dr. Beth Kamhi with us, and we're going to be talking a little bit about chiropractic a little bit later on, and the philosophy behind it, and how it helps with daily stress. But first, Marty, with the local events.
Local events. So at the Bellows Falls Opera House, the movie for the next 2 weeks is The Flash. Continuing with the, is it DC Comics? DC Comics kind of franchise. June 16th to June 27th. The classic movie is in celebration. All this month they're doing movies for Pride Month. So the movie tonight is Pride. It is R-rated, starts at 7 p.m. It is being sponsored by the LGBT National Coming Out Support Hotline. And there's going to be a special pre-movie event happening at the Flatiron Cooperative. John Langford, a musician and activist, will be doing some music and discussion from 5 to 7 at the Flatiron Cooperative. So you can have like a pre-date to the Pride movie tonight. On June 17th, this Saturday, another Pride event happening. A queer tea dance is happening at the Field Center from 4 to 10. We do have a poster on that, I believe. Just to give everybody the details. We don't? Okay. Thought we did. Awesome. Okay, moving on. It is, drumroll please, Alumni Weekend in Bellows Falls.
The biggest weekend in Bellows Falls.
One of the biggest weekend in Bellows Falls. So we have class night happening this evening at the Bellows Falls Union High School. We have graduation happening tomorrow night. We have the totally awesome, unique alumni dance happening Friday night at the Waypoint Center. Have you folks ever?
No.
Oh, it's an interesting event. I'll tell you the backstory later. But we haven't got that much time. The alumni dance, and then Saturday are the reunions and the alumni games. So if you are an athlete that wants to, test your prowess again, there's alumni games this weekend. All of this is available on the BF Alumni Association Facebook page. And then finally, the weekend culminates with the Bellows Falls Alumni Parade on Sunday, starting at 1 p.m. So be aware that either entrance into town will be blocked and traffic will be diverted, so the Alumni Parade can scoop the loop through town. Okay, there, I made it through quickly.
You made it through, but just 1 second. I wanted to congratulate you and the Rotary on the Bellows Falls Festival. It was amazing. And you guys did an amazing job. The bands were great. It was a fantastic event. I hope we can do it years.
That is our hope. David Stern was the brainchild. David Stern was the driving force. We just provided the support that he needed. And I think that the weekend, aside from a tiny little shower, like 15-minute downpour, everything went well. The bands were great. People seemed happy. They showed up.
Yeah, it's good.
So we're just hoping to build every year.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, nice. Beth and Clif, thanks for coming. Maybe we can start with Beth, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and then how you got into chiropractic, and then we can move into what the topic of the day.
Sure.
And make sure you introduce our other guest.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, the silent guest. He's being so quiet.
Okay, this guest here. Yeah,
yes, that guest.
This is George, who's come along to help us with chiropractic discussion. So I'm Beth Kamhi. I'm a chiropractor. I work at Sojourns. I've been in practice. I just passed my 45th graduation from Chiropractic College on June 10th.
Woo, you're like
Thank you.
Yeah.
And chiropractic has been my profession for many years, as an independent practitioner for many years, and then traveled for a few years, and then settled here and have been with Sojourns for about 10 to 11 years now. So practicing 3 days a week with colleagues in a wonderful multidisciplinary setting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So we were speaking before we started the show on something I found interesting. Tell the audience how chiropractic has changed for you from when you started.
Sure. Well, it has changed drastically from when I started, as other things have too. But when I went to chiropractic college, at that time the population was 10% women. Chiropractic itself was outside of the average profession, so that was unusual. And then being a woman in chiropractic was very unusual. The environment in which I practiced was very anti-chiropractic when I first started from the outside world, from the medical perspective. And over time, that has changed drastically. Now it's much more mainstream. People are used to it. As I had mentioned to Marty, there was one point early in my career where, for the first time ever, a medical doctor had referred a patient to me. And I literally almost fell out of my chair when they told me that.
That's not good for your spine.
No, that's right. So it has changed a lot, and I think to the benefit of society in general, to the benefit of people's health and having many choices for their less aggressive interventions up to whatever might be needed also in the medical side. So it's better for everybody.
So tell us, like, with that being said, with it being more mainstream, I still think there's a large amount of people that don't fully understand what chiropractic is. So
Right.
perhaps George can help us.
Yes, I'll give you a short primer on what chiropractic is about. Most of people think of chiropractic as back problems or back pain, a back doctor, and we are that, but we are more than that. So chiropractic is based on the relationship of the spine to the nervous system. So here's George. Let's see how he looks on camera. Okay. When we look at this, this is us. This is our framework. We are built on this. And all of our soft tissue structures, our nervous system, our muscles, our organs are all built onto this frame. So when we think of chiropractic, we're interested in, here's the brain, the spinal cord inside of this movable structure. And if you see the yellow points, those are all the nerves that exit from the spine. So the spine transmits the nervous system from the brain to the body, from the body to the brain. Chiropractic is based on the idea that nerve flow can be interfered with by slight misalignments of the spine, and chiropractic terms that subluxation. So that our job is to evaluate people who come in for different complaints, back pain, sometimes headaches, sometimes other things, such as asthma can be influenced, not every case, but sometimes. And we evaluate the spine for any kinds of misalignments that might be occurring, impacting nerves, and any complications to those. So, there are people who have had injuries as we get older, we have arthritis, there are disc problems, there's all kinds of complications. So we evaluate, make sure that it's safe, that it's appropriate, and then we physically work on the spine in certain special ways to help improve the mechanical function as well as the nerve flow.
Yeah.
I just find it, I couldn't live without it. It's interesting because I originally went to chiropractic because my job required a lot of overuse movement patterns. And I thought, chiropractic is saving me. And then I stopped that job and had now I have a very sedentary job. And you know what? I need chiropractic even more.
That's right.
So maybe we should touch on that topic.
Yes, that kind of brings us to our topic of the day, which is we were thinking that a good useful topic for everybody to learn about, think about, is the effects of our modern lifestyle, which is in many ways not good for our health. Primarily because of, from my perspective, the lack of movement. So we are built to move. Our ancestors, even just in New England, not too terribly long ago, would be sitting maybe 3 hours a day, 4 hours a day, and mobile the rest of the time. With our modern lifestyle, we're sitting, many of us, for 10 to 13 hours per day.
And this, like this.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of it is the, sort of not just that we're sedentary, but the way in which we hold ourselves, and the stress of modern life and in terms of sort of alignment and flow in the body and chiropractic care, I think that the movement becomes really key. And then, having somebody help you figure out what you can do to compensate, because it's not reasonable to think we're just going to suddenly be moving 13 hours a day for an office job. So you do a lot of education as well, I think.
Yes. I'm lucky enough that my job is moving. I'm moving all day. When I first started using a pedometer, I found that I walk 1.75 miles right around my table in my treatment room.
Wow.
So for me, it's easy. But for a lot of people who are sitting, I do often coach people that for a sedentary job, like a computer job, how you sit is important, having the right chair.
I know, I'm thinking of that as you're talking.
Yeah.
Same, right?
Yeah, having the right ergonomics for where the computer is are all very pertinent. You know, people get wrist problems. They're aware of things like carpal tunnel. If their head is protruded forward all the time, that creates degenerative changes and problems in the neck. So I coach people on posture, things like every 10 minutes. You have to move at least 10 minutes of every hour. So even if you're in an office job, instead of sending an email to your colleague, get up and walk across the room and go talk to them, or go get some more water and then go take a walk to the bathroom and relieve yourself. So just build it into your movement. I also instruct a lot of patients who have very upper body intense activities, like I take care of patients who are potters, for instance, professional potters.
So that would be
Right. So for them, they can easily take a TheraBand, an exercise band, and tie it to their workstation, and for a few minutes every hour, sit up, take good posture, and do some rows to counteract all the forward motion that they're doing. So there's many strategies like that you can build into even a job that is sedentary to help with some of those concerns.
Can you explain a little bit? You touched on it with the rounding, but can you go over the natural the natural curves, and then
Sure.
how we end up not in so much a natural position?
Sure.
Because I sit here with my shoulders rounded.
Yes, and we talked about that a little the last time we met too,
Yes,
right?
I'm working on it.
Yes. So when we look at the spine, it's amazing for a two-legged animal that we have figured this out and we can stand under gravity and function. When we look at the spine from behind, it's supposed to be straight. When it's not straight, that's what people know of as scoliosis, for instance. But from behind, it's supposed to be straight. But from the side, it's supposed to have curves. It's supposed to have a little bit of a forward curve in the neck, a little bit of a backward curve where all the ribs attach, a slightly forward curve at our waist, and then a backward curve over our rear end. And that allows us to be a shock absorber. So if we don't have those secondary curves, it creates ongoing,
Yeah.
building mechanical problems. So the first thing that often happens is this forward position of the neck. It can also happen for previous injuries, whiplash, sports injuries, kids growing up who, had concussions, things of that sort. And the body will balance itself. It has a reflex built in to do that. So if you wind up with a neck position that's forward, your body will not let you walk around looking at the floor. It has a reflex to bring your eyes to the horizon. So it will then either take away some of the other curves or add curves in your lower back in order to balance the head to the horizon. And those all can progress to ongoing wear and tear.
I'm fascinated. Every time you speak, I learn more and more and more. And I think that sometimes you really, really have to understand it. And I love the visual, and I love the way that you explain it so that we can then understand how we fix it.
Right.
Because we're the only ones that we can go in and see you, but if we don't do the work
That's right.
in between, it's...
That's right. Certain problems wind up when they get more advanced. Like one of the things the body will do is when something has shifted in alignment, if it's a threat to the nervous system, what the body will do is fixate it. It'll stabilize it there. If it's not able to fix the misalignment itself, it will solidify it so it doesn't progress, and that's when problems become chronic. At that point is when someone needs chiropractic to help restore movement at the intersegmental level, and other things like exercise, physical therapy, other modalities that help to restore the movement. And then there's homework, which is learning to change your posture, strengthen the areas that are weak, stretch the areas that are tight. And by doing that, you can prevent an incredible amount of pain and suffering, not just in the near term, but in the long term. As I often discuss with my patients, my job is not to make you feel better right now as much as it is 15 years from now. And part of it is in the education and in the patient's willingness to take care of their own structure, as we had talked about.
Do we have that? Can we put up that slide? It's just because it's kind of the heart of what you do at Sojourns.
It is for all of us. It's pertinent for.
It's the slide. There we go.
So this was a quote that we were instructed from in chiropractic college from Thomas Edison: "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will instruct his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." And that is, in fact, the overall contributions of all the practitioners at Sojourns.
Because you all work basically as teams, and I think the diversity of perspective. You had said that again in our pre-chat. You want to kind of go into that maybe a little bit for folks?
Well, yeah, sure. For people who aren't familiar with Sojourns, we are an integrative clinic. We have a variety of disciplines under one roof, and we do actually collaborate closely. So as a group of practitioners, every single day we meet and connect about what's going on, either with patients or in the clinic. And it makes a very rich environment. I learn from Beth every day, right? And also from the physical therapists and from the acupuncturists and the nurse practitioners and the naturopaths. And so it's a great environment to kind of keep expanding your horizons and understanding, because we each come from a different discipline and a different perspective. But we have grown closer over the years so that we actually often think alike. Like we might be presented with a patient that has, a certain situation, and it's in our conversation, it's like, oh yeah, right. We come together as a group usually. Anyway, yeah, so that's the essence of Sojourns. We definitely are working in a paradigm overall that is looking for natural solutions to people's situations in terms of health. So, but we all have the sort of medical training to differentiate when you need to escalate.
I'm curious, one of the things that you talked about, I know this is the season now, and it was such a simple fix. You see a lot of golfers.
Right.
And golfers always swing in one direction.
Yes.
And you said a simple thing that you can do is
swing in both directions. That's right. And we can broaden that perspective. But yeah, what Marty is referring to is that one of the advice I give people is for symmetry. So we are two-sided, and the more symmetrical we are in our use, the better it is for our physical well-being. So an example is golf. When you're golfing, it's good for people. I like my patients to go out and golf. It's good for intersegmental mobility, but it's repetitive in one direction, and that can be a problem because then the muscles firing repeatedly one direction will tend to misalign the spine. And then you have a problem. So I often will advise my golfers that when they go up to the tee, they first take an opposite stance. If they're a righty, they take a lefty stance, or vice versa. Do 3 or 4 practice swings, complete practice swings, a wind up all the way through a follow through to loosen up on that side, and then turn around and take their normal stance, practice and play. Not only will this benefit their spine, but it benefits their game.
Really?
I was just going to say, I think that's the key. That's the key thing to emphasize. That's what their game.
That's right. That's how I get people to do it.
That's the hook.
Yeah, exactly. If they're hooking or slicing, it helps to straighten that out.
Perfect.
Well, it's true in golf, but is it true in general then that like handedness, like left-handedness or right-handedness, tends to create an imbalance, and then you work with that? Or
well, yes, in some
batting,
ways.
baseball or
baseball,
something else.
even things like raking,
Yeah, raking.
or my patients who have horses. I'm a horsewoman, so I relate to that. When you're cleaning stalls, you got to switch off. When you're digging in the garden, you got to switch off. And one point that's helpful is it does not have to be in equal amounts, but it does have to be interspersed throughout the activity, just enough to fire the musculature on the other side so that you're creating more neurologic balance as well.
I always think about it with snow shoveling.
Yes.
For some reason that always sticks in my head with snow shoveling. You're trying to get it done, and it's always like, because I'm always more awkward on my left side.
Sure.
But I try to always do that because that's such a back
Intense. That's right.
Intense, especially when we get the nice heavy wet snow that
that we've been getting these days. Yeah, absolutely.
Can you explain a little bit more about the nerves and the nerve issues that can come up, like sciatica and things like that?
Sure. So when you do get imbalances in the spine, the most obvious is pain. So people come in with back pain. If the nerve that's originating the pain is down in the lower three, basically, segments, and if it's a sufficient amount of irritation on the nerve, you can get pain down the leg. People have heard of that. That's sciatica. The sciatic nerve is the biggest nerve that we have. It's about the size of our thumb. It originates in the last three vertebrae. Each of those nerve roots contribute to it. It comes together into a large nerve that exits right here in our pelvis. Right in the butt is a lot of times where people will feel it. And then from there, it heads down the back of the leg, and at the lower leg, it branches. One portion goes down the back of the calf, the other wraps around the calf towards the foot. And that nerve runs our sensation in our leg in addition to our motor function, our ability to use our muscles. So the nerves mostly are dual function like that. They have sensation, they have motor function. Sensation is affected first, so people would maybe have pain, but they still do have the ability to use the leg. If it gets more serious and the motor nerves are affected, then you see things termed foot drop, where someone can't pick their foot up properly and their foot will slap to the ground. That's a much more serious symptom. And as Dr. Steinberg had said, we have to differentiate as practitioners what's in our, court and what has to have medical treatment. If someone is having a sudden loss of motor function in the leg, that could be a surgical emergency. It could be a protruded disc that's really cutting off, and you don't want to let a nerve stay cut off for long periods of time. So that's where we broaden our view to the other things that have to happen. Hopefully, patients don't get there in the first place by doing more of the preventative types of things.
So I sort of understand how the spine could be injured, like in a car crash or impact of some sort.
Yeah.
But how through everyday use? I can see where maybe if you lifted something too heavy, but that's not necessarily true, is it?
Correct.
It could be.
Right. There's usually a couple of sources. One are micro traumas that are collective over time, and the other is a macro trauma, like a car accident or something like that. So the micro traumas, we can come back to our discussion about modern life. As a person gets weaker and their musculature is not supporting their structure, then there's less stability in between these vertebrae. Then you can get shifts that shouldn't happen in a normal level of strength. So you can have things like sleeping on your stomach. It's something adults shouldn't do. That kind of repetitive twist in the neck. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Now you tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew there was some reason I shouldn't do that, but sometimes it just feels comfortable.
Some of that is our emotional basis of that goes back to our childhood. It was a position of comfort, and security, but it's not really great for the spine because when you have your head turned like that and then your muscle tone drops when you go into deep sleep, the muscle tone is no longer protecting those joints and it's easy for them to shift. So I'm often going to see this as a practitioner when my patient comes to me and I correct a misalignment, and they come in every time I see them and that same misalignment is there, I'm going to be asking them, do you sleep on your stomach? Or see if we can hunt it down and help them to make those kinds of lifestyle changes. But with weakness, with our concern in modern lifestyle, With loss of muscle tone, all of this becomes much more problematic, and it impacts a person's productivity and health in many, many ways.
We are getting sort of low on time.
Oh.
So I think it would be helpful, number one, to let people know how to reach you, and also maybe just a brief explanation of what to expect if someone's never been to chiropractic or never been to Sojourns, what to expect, so that you kind of, sometimes there's that barrier to going in because you don't know what it's going to be like. So let's give them a realistic approach.
Okay, so when you contact Sojourns, you will be greeted initially by our client advocate, who will help you figure out what type of care might be most appropriate for you under our roof of diverse options, and help route you to the proper initial interaction. When you come in, if chiropractic is the first type of treatment that you will have, you would meet me or Dr. Hastings, our current practitioners, and we would take a history from you. So the history is very detailed. These days we're doing that on telehealth mostly since COVID, and it turned out to be a really good use of that modality. So we'll have a conversation and we'll talk about your health concerns, your problems, what types of injuries you may have had in your lifetime.
How you sleep.
Yeah, how you sleep, right? What
That's
you do for a
interesting.
living, what your work is. And we'll talk about that so I can get an idea of what the problems might be. And then when you come into the office, you'll have a physical examination. And if you see me, you have a chiropractic-oriented physical. If you see Dr. Steinberg, the physical will be of a different orientation, a more medical type and naturopathic orientation. And then once the exam is done, if we feel that it's appropriate to treat you, then we do a treatment that's called an adjustment. An adjustment is hands-on. We'll be touching you. We'll be pushing on the spine in certain special ways. It's very gentle. It's not painful. And in my profession, there are many, many methods that run from very mild to more physical. And at Sojourns, we run in the mild to medium range of techniques in the chiropractic side of things.
And based on who you're working with.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And I would just say, to answer that question a little bit about, coming into Sojourns, it's a very comfortable place. People frequently say they walk in and it sort of feels like home, and it is actually an old farmhouse. And it's a very friendly place. It's not intimidating, and I think that's a good thing for people to know, basically.
Yeah, I think we're almost, we gotta wrap it up.
Getting the sheets.
Once again, we just get deep into the conversation. I
Yeah,
didn't even
that's
get
what
to
we
ask
did.
all my questions, but we hope that we're going to continue with the Sojourns spotlight on practitioners, because I think the information is
They're great.
invaluable.
Oh, so much
you
every
guys-
time.
Yeah, I think Kai Morrison, who's a naturopath and an acupuncturist,
Is next up.
Oh, great.
Awesome.
Okay, well, that's it for today. Attend alumni events and have fun.
Well, I can
Thank you.
Bye.